special speaker, and he and I have shared the platform together as we tag-teamed in preaching before, and I always enjoy that. And E.T. always has something great and profound to say. And so, brother, would you step on up here and give him a great big God bless you. And this is his first time to speak like this here. And so he said he could go for 5 minutes or 5 days. Maybe it was 5 hours. And I think 5 days. But guys, I think he has a word for us. And we're praying that the Spirit will not only minister through him, but the Spirit will minister to us. Give him one more great big God bless you.
Okay. Yeah, this is definitely not my first time to stand up here with a microphone. If you've been coming to church here for a while, you know that I get up here and pastor allows me to close out the service every day. And that usually amounts to me having to pay pretty strict attention to what he says because I don't get an advanced script or anything like that. I don't know what he's going to talk about. So I got to pay attention. So it helps me to pay attention. So I appreciate it in that respect. And then I attempt to relay in about 3 minutes or so how that sermon relates to me in my personal life, how maybe I could put it into practice in my personal life, or I don't know. I have to cook up something on the fly every Sunday for 3 to 5 minutes. And it's I enjoy doing it. I don't know if the rest of you enjoy doing it or not. You're probably going, I want to get out of here. Cowboys are fixing to start. And I have spoken many times in front of groups at conferences and such for Alcoholics Anonymous many times and telling my story. And that's kind of basically what I'm going to be doing today. It doesn't say guest speaker, guest preacher, guest anything else. You can tell, I'm not a preacher, all right? So, Jose was asking me earlier, said, what Bible verses do you want me to put up there? Nah, I don't think I'm going to do that. So, I'd been thinking about it for a week or so, and if I get up here and try to quote a whole bunch of verses to a bunch of people that are much more well-versed than I am, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb that this guy is trying to fake it. He's trying to pull a fast one. Now, that does not mean that God has not touched me personally and done things in my life and that I have a better relationship with God today than I've ever had before. I do have all that and more, and a lot more. But a preacher, I am not. If I was, Carla would be sitting up here on the front row, because that's what they do, right? The wife would be on the front row, and then there might even have some CDs for sale out in the lobby. But not me, not today, okay? What I'm going to attempt to do is relay to you a little bit about what my life was like and how I got here, how I ended up standing right here today, and more importantly, how I developed a relationship with God that I didn't have before, how that all came about, and what I had to do to make that happen, because it didn't just happen like that. Now, my belief in God and through Jesus and the Holy Ghost came at a very young age. I mean, I was raised in that kind of family, all right? And I think there's probably a handful of people in here that knew my mother and father. And I can tell you, they were at home, they were just like they are in public, they're that way at home too. I mean, these people, they were just good people. That's all there is to it. And my mother, I tell you what, she was probably to this day the most spiritual woman I've ever met in my life. That woman had a connection with God that wouldn't quit. I'm telling you, she was raised by her grandmother because her mother was too busy to raise her. So she was raised in a little town of Hearn by her grandmother. And her grandmother apparently was pretty big on Bible, going to church. Southern Baptist, of course. So I think that's where her Bible thumping started. And she She's one of those ones that would wear out a Bible. I mean, she'd wear it out. She'd read that thing every day. She would make notations in the margins. Wasn't real big. I don't think highlighters had even been invented back in those days. But she made notes, and she read, and she wore out Bibles. And I tell you later, an example of it, many years later, and I mean like 2 years probably before she died. She'd been gone now about 8 years, I think. Something had happened to her, and she'd broken her foot or something. She had diabetes real bad, and she was 90 years old. And, well, we were going to get some full-time help to come stay with her, and I believe maybe they hadn't gotten there yet. Maybe they hadn't started yet. But so anyway, we were taking turns spending the night up there at her house just to be there in case something happened. And she had one of those baby monitor things in her room, and the other one was the receiver was over in the room I was sleeping in. So it came time to go to bed, and go in there and lay down, and it's pretty quiet, and all of a sudden I hear somebody talking on that baby monitor, and it's my mother, and she's praying. And I tell you, it was really, it almost made me feel like I needed to turn it off, like I was invading something very special. But I couldn't do it. It drew me in. And she was talking to God like he was sitting in the room with her, saying that she was literally saying how much she loved him. She said, in first person, I love you. I love you so much. And I tell you, man, it brought me to tears then, and it brings me tears today to think about that relationship that she had and how I wished I had that relationship too. And, try as I would pray. I've always been a prayer, mostly for selfish things, mostly for getting me out of this jam or getting me out of another jam or, always about me, always praying about me. And rarely did these prayers ever appear to me anyway to come true or to come to fruition. It just felt like they were falling on deaf ears. Now, I got to tell you, being an alcoholic and being that age, I was 100% operating on self-will. There was not much room for God in my life. I have always acknowledged its existence. Not a problem with that. But having a relationship with God, I think we were just barely acquaintances. We knew who each other were, but you wouldn't call us best friends. Now, that's from my side. That's not from God's side. God's side is looking at a wayward son that, is that he's praying for and wishing that I would come home. So there you go. See, if I was a real preacher, they'd bring me water up here too. But alas, no, it's not going to happen. Okay. Unanswered prayers. That seemed like I had a whole lifetime full of them. Every once in a while today, I get the feeling that these prayers aren't being answered. But I tell you what, more and more of them are being answered, and I think they were probably being answered back in those days. I didn't have the spiritual eyes, the eyes of my heart, to see these things. There's so much going on around us that we don't see, that we never see. I read the other day that of the spectrum of light, the entire spectrum, we humans see 1/3 of 1% of the light that's going on around us. 1/3 of 1%, and we think that's enough to know what's going on. There is such a large, look at that, that's the way you do it. That's the way I've seen it done before, that's how they do it. There's so much going on around us that we don't see, that we take for granted, that we don't understand, we don't see it, we don't feel it. We might feel it a little bit through the Holy Ghost, but we don't see it typically. But anyway, back to my spiritual giant of a mother. She was the spiritual leader of our business out there at EBA. She'd have a Bible study on Wednesdays for any of the girls in the office that wanted to go, and they all wanted to go. They didn't make any of them go. They all wanted to go. They had Bible study every Wednesday in there for an hour during lunch. That was great. There was and still is, an organization in town here. There's a chapter of it. It's called CBS, Community Bible Study. It's a nationwide thing. It may be a worldwide thing. I'm not sure. But there was a time, it's only been around since about 75, I think. But there was a time early on, when my mother moved out here in 73, she wanted that community Bible study to go on here in this little town. Well, they told her, their main office is up in Colorado somewhere, they told her that Eastland's too small. We're not going to put a chapter down there. Well, she didn't take no for an answer. And I'm not going to, if you went with her, I'm sorry I left your name out because I don't know who all went with her. I don't know if my older sister Leslie went with her or not. But my mother went to Colorado and sat down with those people and said, we're going to have one of these in Eastland. We're going to have it. Went up there on her own dime and just said, bring it. It's still going on. That thing is still going on. My mother was a president for a long time. Leslie was president of it, I think. Vicki, I think she might have been, I know you're involved in it too, but it's been going on. It's a direct result of her faith and confidence in the Lord that will be brought here to these people, and she accomplished that. What happened? I say she accomplished that. What she did was she allowed God to work through her. See, that's what we have to do. There is something that can trump God's power. That's this ego right here that says, I'm going to do it my way. He loves us so much that he not only died for us, but he allows us to walk away from him as well. All the way to the gates of hell if that's the way we want to play it. And he will love us all the way there. But he did love us and does love us enough to allow us to reject him. So my mother was the backbone of the spirituality of the company. My dad, he was a well-respected guy in this town. Actually, everywhere he went, he was respected. And it's a pretty simple formula. He was honest, and he was fair. And that's about all you got to be. And if you go through life being honest and fair with people, you, with a little bit of initiative, can achieve great things too. And, he built a company from scratch in his garage, praying for God to guide and direct him the whole time. And I believe he did. My mother's encouragement as well. She's handling she's got the spiritual load on her, pushing him with the technical load. And between the two of them, they accomplished a company that's still here today. And I can remember as a child, a little kid, riding in the back of their car, going somewhere at night, different times, and it never crossed my mind to be scared as if we weren't going to get where it was we were going. I always had confidence that he was going to get us there. I could lay down in the back seat and go to sleep in the middle of a storm knowing that he was going to get us there. That is the kind of faith I desire to have today with my Heavenly Father. That kind of faith. The Bible talks about having faith like a child. And that's what it means, to have faith that is unquestioned, just to believe it's going to happen and believe he's going to take care of us and believe if I ask for his guidance and direction and follow his guidance, have the courage to follow his guidance, I can remain on the path. And the path is a place to be, I'm telling you. Getting off of that path, there's sticker birds out there when you get off that path, I'm telling you. I lived most of my life off of that path. And I can tell you from experience, it's much better on the path, okay? It's not a race. You don't have to you don't have to worry about who's in front of you or behind you, because we're all going to get there. We're all going to get there. All this will be like a blink of an eye. It's going to, I'm not saying it's not going to matter, but, we get so tied up, worried about our loved ones that have passed on. And when we get there, it's going to be like they just left yesterday. Like, oh, glad you could make it. Took your time, didn't you? And that's the way it's going to be. It's the way it's going to be, because eternity, compared to what we live and what we experience, I don't care how smart you think you are, there is no way a human being can comprehend infinity. No way. You can say you can, no way. We live in a finite world that has finite dimensions to it, and a finite lifespan that we all have. It's going to end. And a lot of our loved ones have already gone ahead of us. And I know, that I'm sure I know for a fact there's a handful of people in here that have had to bury children. I know that. I know who you are. I don't know every one of you. There's probably some in here that I don't know that have had to do that. But that's a little bit different ball game, I'm telling you. When you bury a child, burying my parents that were 80 and 90 years old, I'm not saying I don't miss them. I'm just saying they had a full, complete life. I know that their faith has got them into heaven. I know that's where they are. There's no question in my mind where they are, that they're doing great. And they had a long life here. So it's different, when your parents die. It's different. It's not out of order. But when you have to bury one out of order, it's an entirely different ballgame. It's a little harder to handle, and it's really hard on women, really hard on them. A mother will have a relationship that a father will never have, and I don't care how good a daddy you think you are, you ain't never going to have a relationship with that child like that mother does, and that's just the way it is. They carried them for 9 months, they delivered them, they nursed them, You can't do that, Daddy. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean we don't miss them. And about I don't know how many years ago it was now, 2010, I think, when my son died. And I say he died of alcoholism because there's a lot of different ways to die of alcoholism. It's not always with a bad liver. Sometimes it's by getting hit by a train when making a bad decision after you've been up drinking for 2 days. I call that dying of alcoholism as well. And so Gene, my son, he was doing the exact same thing I did when I was his age, the exact same path of drinking and partying and carbon copy. The only difference was, about 10 years prior to this 2010, I got sober. And I was getting out of that game, and he was getting into that game. He was just getting started. So, around that time, we didn't see each other a whole lot. I'm sober, he's not. We don't see each other. But one day, I was waiting on a package at work. UPS delivery package. It didn't come. We track it. Says it got delivered. We get them to track where it got delivered. Got delivered over there where Gene lives. So, okay, all right. So I'd go over there. I hadn't seen Gene in 3 months probably. Wasn't unusual for us to not see each other or talk for months at a time because he was out doing that thing that I used to do, and I didn't do it anymore. So we just didn't see each other. So I pull up to the house. He's there by himself. Comes out on the porch. I say, Gene, I'm looking for a UPS box that was supposedly delivered here. He goes, what is it? I said, it's nothing. It's just a box of underwear that I'd ordered from somewhere, Amazon or something. I don't know where I ordered it from. It's nothing. So he takes me in the house. We walk around, look for it. Can't find it. Nothing there. Okay. Well, I said, the tracking says it was delivered here, 106 Lynn Street. It was delivered here. Well, I don't know where it is. So I start to walk out back to the truck, and he's up on the porch, and just about the time I start to get in the truck, he says, hey, Dad. I said, yes, son. He said, I love you. I said, I love you too. Didn't know those were our last words. No idea those were our last words. So I leave, and it wasn't that day. I think it was the next day that I started getting all these text messages. And I called my friend Greg over here, who one of the messages was from him. He said, did you hear about Gene? I said, no, I didn't. What's up? He said, well, he was in a wreck over in Ranger, and he didn't make it. He's over at the hospital. I went over there. When I got to the hospital, he'd been dead about 4 hours, something like that. I didn't have my phone with me. I'd left it in a motorcycle bag, and I'd gone into the house, and I didn't have it. I didn't look at it for several hours, and while all this was going on, I didn't know. So I get over there and go back to the emergency room where they've got him laid out. Doesn't look bad. Doesn't look bad at all. He's got a few little scratches here and there, but I guess when you get hit by a train, it can do some internal damage, that's obviously killed him. So I'm looking at him, and his mother tells me that before you ask, yes, alcohol was involved. I said, well, it doesn't really surprise me. It doesn't make me mad, so I was really kind of almost indifferent to it, because by now I have an understanding of alcoholism, how it works, what it does to people, how they lose the power to choose when it comes to drinking. And I knew that Gene was in that camp. I knew that's what he was going through. So stayed in there for a little while, and he's laying there. He's kind of got the sheet off of him, and I'm looking at him. He's got my underwear on. The underwear I ordered and lost, he's got a pair of them on. I said to Randa, I said, those are my underwear. That's what I was going over there to the house looking for. She goes, well, you want them back? I said, I don't think so. So as I left that room that day, what met me in the waiting room was about 9 people from my AA group were in there waiting for me to come out. That meant more to me than just about anything at that time. Because you see, it was in and through Alcoholics Anonymous that I learned how to have a relationship with God. And as it turns out, AA was nothing like what I thought it was. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't anything like I thought it was going to be. It had very, very little to do with drinking, very little, and everything to do with me, my ego, my selfishness, my inability to connect to God, and the damage that I create around me because of all of that. And in a step-by-step program that will lead you right on out of that and right into a place where you can have that relationship. This relationship with God it's like any other relationship, in that if I do all the talking and none of the listening, it ain't going to go very far. That's the way I've always treated God. I do the talking, get up and walk out. No listening, just me doing the talking. I tried that in a couple of marriages, and that didn't work out too well. And I haven't got it completely out of my system. Okay, I ain't perfect at this. All right, I'm trying. I really am trying to do it better. But in order to have a true relationship, it's got to be two-way. It has to be. I have to do some listening from time to time. And there has to be, and there can't be these things in me that separate me from God. Come to find out, it's more than just, I believe, therefore let me receive. There's some things I had to do to make it possible. I didn't know that I had to reduce my ego and my selfishness and self-centeredness. I had to address those things directly. I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me that in church. All I ever heard was, pray, and if you got enough faith, you'll get it. Well, that only leaves one answer. When I don't get whatever it was I prayed for, well, clearly, I'm in the no faith camp. I'm trying to have faith. I want to have faith. But faith is a funny thing. Faith is not a switch on the wall I can just turn on. Faith is a result. Faith comes after demonstrations of power. Faith has to be learned. we have to experience it. We have to experience these things. Otherwise, it's just, I'm asking you to believe that the sky's green and just do it, okay? Or it's purple, or whatever color you want. Without understanding, without seeing it, just do it. So I was lucky in that I was an alcoholic, and I ended up getting put into a rehab that focused on AA. I was real lucky to land there. Wasn't my idea either. The wife pushed me into it. I'm thankful to this day that she did. Very thankful. But I learned a lot about myself in that rehab, and continue to learn in AA, that there are things, character defects, character flaws. Some you might call it the 7 deadly sins, the things that stand in between me and receiving God's graces. Now, I'm not talking about salvation. I'm talking about just a life that's not a disaster, okay? One that's free of alcohol and drugs and free of, for the most part, of stepping on other people's toes and getting myself in jams that require me to go back and make amends for something. And let me tell you, making amends, as we speak of, not about saying I'm sorry. An amendment is a change. And a change means I'm not only sorry that I stepped on your toes, but here's what I'm going to do in the future to make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm going to make sure I've got 2 feet around you at all times, that I'm not, and I'm going to be more observant. I'm not going to accidentally, I hope, step on your toes anymore. That's making an amendment. That's what we do in AA. We don't just say, I'm sorry. We try to come up with, formulate a plan where it doesn't happen again. We try to change our lives. And as we do these things, and as we locate, and I mean writing it down, an inventory of these defects. Now when I go to God with this list, I can say, Lord, I'm selfish in this area of my life. I'm lazy in this area of my life. I've been taking advantage of it at work. I've been taking advantage of them, not giving them a full day's work for a full day's pay. Anyway, it's a list, a shopping list of defects in my character. That's what it boils down to usually. Selfishness, self-centeredness, laziness, these type things. Now, it's like God said, well, I'm glad you finally brought that up, because this business of you praying for me just to fix you, what do you expect me to do? There's nothing I can do. So now that I've got a list, he has begun to reduce these things in my life, make them more apparent. And when those things began to reduce, humility begins to rise. As ego comes down, humility starts to go up. That is the condition I have to be in to approach God, one of humility. No other condition will allow me access to him. It's like if you borrowed a bunch of money at the bank and lost all of it, and you got to go back in there and you got to go ask for more. You going to go in there all big and bad and joking and laughing, or are you going to go in with your hat in your hand like this and say, I made some errors, but I think I know what those errors are now. And if you're willing to, I believe it's still a good idea, but I think I just want to know if you'd be willing to go forward with me. That's how I got to approach God, in the same manner. Now, that doesn't mean, I'm not talking about being timid and embarrassed. As our pastor will tell us, we approach the throne with a certain amount of boldness, but it's not bravado, it's confidence is the word. Confident that I have a relationship with this entity that I can discuss things with fairly. It's confidence. That's how I should approach the throne, that I'm one of you. Man, I saw a good one the other day on Facebook. It was a preacher talking, and one of the second or the third guy on not Jesus, but one of the other 2 guys on the cross. You know, there's 3 of them. He gets up there to the pearly gates and wanting to get in, and they're going, wait a minute, what qualifies you to be here? You ain't ever read the Bible. You never been to church. You don't know anything about what's going on up here. Why are you here? And he goes, that man on the middle cross, he said I could come. It's about that easy. That part is that easy. Now, spiritual growth is an entirely different thing. But that part, salvation, yeah, it's that easy. Lucky us. That's all I got to say to that. Lucky us. But anyway, my relationship with God through Christ and the Holy Spirit, which I think is highly underrated, needs to get a whole lot more airtime. Holy Spirit's one of my favorites. I can have a relationship now. When I pray, I don't get up and walk out of the room. I sit down. If nothing else, just sit down and shut up. Just show some obedience. You don't have to get into a vegetative, meditative state or anything like that. Just show some common decency like you would if you were talking to anybody else. Or just say your piece and walk out of the room. Sit there for a minute. Ask for his guidance and direction. The way it manifests itself in my life is, for one thing, the world makes a lot more sense than it used to. I can see things that I didn't used to see. I can see the love of God in somebody's eyes, and when I don't see it in others. I can see these things. The world, like I said, the world makes more sense. There's not as much confusion. I don't find myself stepping on the same toes over and over. Life is better. It's a lot better. It's a lot better. There's only one thing that will pay it back, and that's the willingness to share it with somebody else. Whether it's through, and don't get me wrong, Alcoholics Anonymous is not church, okay? And this ain't AA. They're two different things, but they complement each other so beautifully that I personally know preachers that come to AA on occasion, and they're not alcoholics, just because they enjoy seeing God working directly. You're seeing miracles, God's handiwork right in front of your eyes. It's right there happening. These people's lives are being changed. It's incredible. And you can see it. You don't have to guess about it or think about it. It's happening. And that happened to me personally. I call that a building block of faith. And as I get these building blocks of faith start to add up, I get to where I can see it in other people's lives. And that's even more fun than seeing it in my own. When you start recognizing it in other people's lives, how God's doing something in their life, man, that's cool. And we see a lot of it in AA. We see a lot of it. But this has been like a 30-minute closing. You know, the pastor, he likes to joke about how, oh, well, now I'm past the introduction. Okay, well, I finally got to the ending part, I think. So anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you all this morning, and that's all it really is. It's just a talk. It's one person talking to another person, or in AA, it's one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. We identify with their situation first. We listen to their story on how God changed their life and what it's like now, and hopefully that's enough to set the hook where they want to know more. I want some of that. That's the kind of life I want. And that's what we hope to do. This Christianity thing's been going on for over 2,000 years. It was prophesied, probably a couple of thousand years before that. And for the most part, it's all been word of mouth. One Christian talking to another, leading them to the door that enters where we can enter the kingdom. One talking to another. So don't shy away from talking to somebody about it. You don't have to be an expert. Just tell them what happened to you. That's the best. That's all you got to do. Just tell them what happened to you, what it's like now, what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. And may God bless each and every one of you. I hope to continue this thing that I got going over here. I really enjoy it. I know I'm not the greatest in the world, but I enjoy it. And, I tell you what, I went to the pastor early on, and I asked him, I said, I think I'm doing this for the wrong reason. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm enjoying it. This is too much fun. He said, no. Walking on God's path in his will is supposed to be enjoyable. It's not supposed to be a chore. He wants you to enjoy this world and this life. So do your best to stay on that path. And when you get off, ask somebody to help you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And again, for all you people out there that have had to bury children, have no fear. Have no fear. that the Lord is with you and the Lord is with those children. And everything we will see when we get there, it's exactly like it was supposed to be. Exactly. So with that, my friends, I love you.